Prime Minister Keir Starmer has pledged an extra £13.5 billion to the country's annual defence budget. That is a ton of cash. And the reason for the uplift? Putin and his invasion of Ukraine, and a war that's been going on for 3 years. At a press conference announcing the new spending, Starmer turned poetic.
Good evening. I was a young man when the Berlin Wall came down. I remember it vividly. It felt as if we were casting off the shackles of history, a continent united by freedom and democracy. If you told me then that in my lifetime we would see Russian tanks rolling into European cities again, I would not have believed you. Yet here we are, in a world where everything has changed. Because 3 years ago in Ukraine, that is exactly what happened. Just reflect on that for a second. I think it's worth it. Just imagine you're walking to work, taking your kids to school. Just another February morning like any other. Then suddenly, missiles, sirens, explosions, not in the distance, not on television, in your town, hitting your community, killing your friends, an invading army in your country.
Mr. Starmer, you are describing what Israel is doing right now in Gaza. Where's your ire for what's happening there? Not only have you failed substantially to do anything about precisely that happening in Gaza, and actually the West Bank more recently, you've helped aid them. We've been giving them material support. We've been giving them logistical support via the RAF coming from our air bases in Cyprus. Even when the Israelis did all of that and killed 3 UK national aid workers who were ex-military service personnel, we didn't even investigate them. We literally said, you investigate yourselves. Let us know how it goes. So the double standard here is utterly remarkable. What on earth is going on? Kieran, seeing that speech Starmer gave later on the day, I just looked at him and thought, this man is incredibly insubstantial given the stakes we're facing right now. It wasn't that long ago that the Russians, as a show of force, used an ICBM in Ukraine. That means an intercontinental ballistic missile. That can be used against UK forces in Cyprus. That can even be used here in the UK. That's the whole point of an ICBM. And we have a prime minister consciously trying to ratchet this up, bring heat to this, and it doesn't feel like that's going to make the UK more safe. If anything, actually, it makes us more vulnerable.
Yeah, and Aaron, forgive me, I want to circle back to something you said a moment ago, actually, because you made a very, very important point about the juxtaposition of Starmer's positioning on this and Palestine. And I do just want to make one quick point on that. We, on the side of Palestinian justice, have been arguing, among many, many other things, like, for example, Palestinian life has worth in itself, Palestinians have a right to self-determination like everyone else, etc., etc. Among many other things, I think it's fair to say, we have been warning the international community who care so much about, allegedly, and pray in aid so relentlessly to the rules-based international system. And one of our warnings in all of this was, if you allow Gaza to be annihilated, as you are currently doing, not just allow, actually, that's mealy-mouthed language from me, not just allow, if you continue to fund, if you continue to aid and abet, and if you continue to profit off the genocide in Gaza and the destruction of the Gazan people and by extension the Palestinian people, then nobody will ever take you seriously again when you want them to on questions of international law and the rules-based international order. And that, as far as I can see, is an extremely important lesson playing out now, because what we have is a government and a set of governments who allowed the continuation of sales of arms, missiles, bombs to the Israelis, turning around and saying to us, but now you have to take it seriously. Now you have to give us your backing, give us a blank check, and support anything we decide is in your best interest and to keep you safe. Why? Because Putin has violated the international rules-based order. Well, hello. Netanyahu has been doing that for a very, very long time. And I like to be consistent. It's serious when anybody does it. And that, I think, Aaron, is what distinguishes us from them, is that we don't deploy these things cynically and strategically when it suits us. We're consistent with it. Breaking of international law is breaking of international law. It's not only the breaking of international law when our allies do it or our enemies do it. It's consistent. And that, I think, we said all along, you'll live to rue the day. And this is I think it throws in stark relief what a terrible decision it is to only apply this kind of thing inconsistently.
I mean, I should say, in the last general election, I voted for the Greens. I have a perfectly nice person who's a Labour MP in my constituency. There's much worse. But I voted for the Greens. And the deal breaker for me was that I genuinely thought Keir Starmer could lead this country into another insane war. I genuinely thought that. And I find it remarkable that he's talking about the UN and Russia waging an illegal war of aggression, which they are. And yet he takes advice on a regular basis from a man, Tony Blair, who did precisely the same thing. Moreover, his staff, many of the top people now increasingly within the Labour Party, from the ambassador to the United States, Peter Mandelson, to Jonathan Powell, Blair's former chief of staff, are ensconced within the Starmer project. So people that were key to that decision to wage an illegal war of aggression in Iraq and are part of an administration which says that Russia was doing the same thing and that's why we need to spend an extra £13 billion a year on defence. Does it make any sense to you? It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever.